Morning. Today's January 22nd. It is Thursday. It's 9 a.m. We are going to have a very varied morning. Sorry for whatever mental whiplash happens from it. So we're going to talk about the healthcare IT sunset, which we'll need to do something about in miscellaneous tax. We are going to do a straw poll vote on H 545. We're going to hear about one piece in the Budget Adjustment Act that we did not hear about, that's sort of peripheral to Ways and Means. More on 545 because our two witnesses were divided. And then the miscellaneous tax bill. I don't know if folks remember when we walked through it last week. Rebecca Samaroff wasn't available at that point, so we're going to do that with tax. And then we're going to hear about the budget. All before lunch. I know, wild times, but we get to start the day with Jen and Nolan. So please join us, however works for you.
Well, you just think what's in there? And streaming. All right, for the record, Noel Langwell, the Joint Fiscal Office.
And Jen Kirby from the Office of Legislative Counsel.
Today we're here to talk about the HIT fund tax, but you can't talk about that without talking about the health claims tax. So you have an issue brief on this that I had done, and it should be posted, and it's just here. I didn't even put together a presentation because it's so short, simple.
And this is totally different from the provider tax, right?
Totally different from
Okay.
provider tax.
Which we're going to hear about soon, folks, but not today.
So the health claims tax, so the difference between the two is provider tax is tax on providers. Health claims tax, the tax on claims, insurers. So today we're talking about.
Well named.
Yes. So it used to be called the healthcare claims assessment, but it was actually changed in 2013. I'm actually jumping ahead of myself, but at the time, the chair of finance, let's just call it tax. And so they changed name, and they moved, it used to be collected by AHS, and now it's collected by the tax department. But what it is it's a tax equal to 0.999% of all health insurance claims paid by health insurers by their Vermont members for the previous year. So it's a look back. 2% of that goes to the Department of Taxes for software stuff. So, and then the rest gets split 80-20 between the HIT fund and the general fund. Now, why is it 0.99? Well, first in 2008, the Health IT Fund was created along with Act 192, which created Catamount. And it was a 0.199% tax on claim, well, assessment, that's on claims. And all that money went to the HIT fund. Very next year, or the year after that, I forget which, this high-tech act came out from the federal government that we were able to get all this 90-10. So the 90-10, now it's a mix of 90. We get all these different matches, and I'll get into that later. But that fund was created specifically for health information technology. Fast forward to 2013, when the state was looking for a new revenue, and it was expanded an additional 0.8% for a total of 0.999%. The difference is that 0.199 still goes to the Health IT Fund. The rest goes to the general fund. At that time, it actually went into the State Healthcare Resources Fund, but now it goes in the general fund along with a lot of the other taxes. So we get to the sunset. So the sunset, I believe, was created in 2013, and let me actually find it. So the sunset, I believe, was in 2013, and the original one sunset in 2017. And then you can see what's happened. And the purpose of the sunset, I think Representative Brannigan might be, oh, no, Madeline, there were two members who were on the committee at the time. And the idea behind the sunset was when we did the 0.8 and we did the 0.199, the conversation was had, well, we should start looking at this every several years and just have the conversation about whether it seems to be necessary. And as you can see from this list right here, this is all the time that the health IT fund sunset has been extended. 7 times. And in the governor's gov rec, he proposes to postpone it 1 year. So you'll see when you get to the budget language, it's postponed to July 1, 2027. Jen, is there anything you want to add?
No, I mean, I can show you the existing statutory language if it's helpful to sort of see what that looks like and or what it looked like when you extended it the last time in legislation, so you would know what to expect, but
It's okay. Does anyone want to? Okay,
it sort of lives in 2 different places because of the money, so it has to get amended in 2 different places. Because of
because
the
it's a
tax
receiving.
rate itself, exactly, and there's the revenue going into the HIT fund.
And so this is the revenue that's been collected since its inception. So you can see 0.8 goes to, well, it said general, it was State Healthcare Resources Fund, and then I know it's general, it's up to 2018, and starting in 2019, it went to the general fund. And you can see, we estimate that the 0.8 will bring in 24 million. The HIT fund will bring in about 6 million. Now, for those who are saying, well, where did that money go? I do have a link to the HIT fund report, but I can also pull it up. Try to pull it up. I'm going to have to stop sharing my screen for a second. And then I can pull it up. Okay. So in the report, in that HIT fund report, this is where the money has been spent for, or how it's allocated for fiscal year 26. When I asked them, I did make a request about 2 weeks ago for what the 27, allocation estimations are going to be, but I haven't received it. But you can see the first 2, there's 6.7 and there's 5.3. So that's the majority of the fund is going to be is allocated for vital. And then 205 that goes to Cathedral Square, which is for blueprint stuff. This 2 million, this was actually part of Act 68. It was to from the HIT fund to AHS for grants to hospitals for collaborative efforts to reduce hospital costs. So, and it was such as enhancing telehealth infrastructure. None of this money I don't know if this money's actually been allocated out, but the 2 million was taken out of the HIT fund for that particular purpose. It doesn't happen very often where money from HIT fund is used for non-specific HIT. That was, in this case, they had done that. But this gives you a sense of how the money is being spent.
Some thoughts from my head about next steps for the committee. A 1-year sunset seems just frankly kind of annoying. And I also removing the sunset seems like a step too far. I think it is helpful to sort of refresh our minds about some of these like less usual practices. And so would love to start the conversation. This would go in miscellaneous tax probably. And so we have until crossover to make final decisions about it. I'll propose to the committee 5 years. I think on the other side of where the spending goes, I think there's as we get clarity on the federal healthcare grant that we are going to have no ability to appropriate or make any decisions on. It's fully a conversation between the administration and the feds. Once we get more clarity on it, it's possible there's some overlap here that we might want to work out with the administration about where that spending is happening. And so, but that also can't happen until we're probably not going to get the grant finalized for probably another month or so or a few weeks. And so we won't have that information for a while either.
Talking about the 195 million.
Yes. And so the joint fiscal committee is going to take testimony on that grant when it's finalized. But that won't be for a little while. Does anyone have any questions for Nolan or Jen? Yeah.
I recall, Madam Chair, years ago, that the concern was that this wouldn't last very long, that we would eliminate it. So that's why they
Yeah.
wanted it to be just a year.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's been proven wrong. So, do we know why Governor wanted to just continue the 1 year? Did they just not think?
I don't know. Adam's coming in, Adam and Rebecca are coming in later today, so we can ask them.
Sure,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, I agree. Kind of,
I think we're really gonna have the conversation again next year.
yeah.
Whoever's at this table.
Well, I thought maybe because things are so difficult financially, that there might be some change that would be recommended for next year.
Oh,
We can always change the sunset next year.
So we can make changes even when there's a sunset.
Right.
yes.
Like the sunset can stay there and we can make legislative changes.
That's right, next year,
We can
right?
make changes before a sunset.
That's right, okay.
Yeah.
Need
We
to-
don't have to wait.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Any, yeah, do you have questions for?
I do, for Nolan, do you have any idea of, do other states charge this similar fee?
Don't know. Don't know. I think when we did it, we were one of the first. I think when high tech came out, a lot of states were looking to maximize.
What came out?
It's called the High Tech Act. I don't remember what it stood for, but it was a push in early aughts to sort of promote electronic health records and health information technology, real push. And I don't remember what was under. I don't remember the specifics of it, but I remember it happened. A lot of states try to come up with ways to raise money to get the 9-10 match. I don't know what exists today, or if there's anything like this anywhere else.
I think that it was a couple years ago and Vital was really under a microscope,
Yeah.
right? Are you aware if the issues that were surfaced then have dissipated? So that's why it's kind of a non-event in the renewal of this versus previous years?
What I can say is that in some of these acts that, and I have this in the issue brief, there were in 2017 and 2018, there were some specific looks and requirements of Vital to dig deep into what was happening. I know that at one point Mike Smith was brought in to sort of right the ship. I cannot speak to anything about them in the current environment. You'd have to hear from them.
Yes, what I can say is that there was significant attention paid, as Nolan said, there was specific legislation directing them to do certain things, but also kind of transforming some of the oversight into an active role by DVHA, the Department of Vermont Health Access. And there is also, and so we have not heard similar concerns since that time. I don't know if that means that everything is going well, but we haven't heard similar concerns. And there is a new executive director at Vital who I just met within the last week or two in this building. So I expect people will be hearing from him at some point as well.
I will also just add that at one point there was legislation that required the Green Mountain Care Board to look at Vital's budget the same way they look at hospitals. I think, and they did that for several years.
It was just repealed last year, just eliminated last year.
And the reason it was eliminated was not because of Vital, but because the board was trying to focus its energy and its resources more efficiently.
Anyone else? Thank you both. Nolan. Page 545,
Yes.
is there a fiscal impact? Do you want to tell us about?
So the two places where I would look for there to be a fiscal impact would be, does it impact the state employees plan? And does it have an impact on programs in the state? So I spoke to the folks at HR and they said it does not have a noticeable impact on the state employee plan. We already cover a lot of those vaccines, so there's nothing new or great there. And then when I spoke to AHS, they said, well, there may ultimately be a need for state policy for state to pay for vaccines that are not covered under the federal program. that is to be determined. And this specific legislation does not have any direct fiscal impacts on the state. So in short, I did not do a fiscal note because there did not seem to be any immediate pending.
And those are both appropriations questions that you're asking.
Correct.
So you don't see any revenue impacts either.
There's no fees, is there? Yeah, I
Okay, great.
don't think so. I'll double
Okay.
check.
Okay. Thank you both. We have 10.
Coming back.
Well, I was gonna ask if there's any, enjoy yourself, Jenny. I was.
Need to go get my iPad downstairs.
Yeah, no, do whatever you need to do, that's
More
fine.
appropriate.
Would folks like to take a break, or is there a particular conversation that anyone would like to have to fill the next 10 minutes of our lives?
We had a good committee dinner last night.
Whoa, wait, just like, is there a policy conversation anyone would like to have for the next 10 minutes? And one of the things is like, we ask people to read reports, and like, if you want to, if there is not testimony scheduled soon, or you're not aware of when testimony is going to be scheduled related to the report that you read, and you would like to have a conversation about that, please talk to me and Sorsha about finding time for sort of like a book report type situation of sorts. Yes.
They'll need to do a book report, but we have read and pulled out some key highlights from some of the reports.
Okay.
What do you want us to do with those? Do we send it to Sorsha? I mean, how do you want it shared with the community?
I think it depends on what it is, because if it's something that we already have testimony scheduled on, would just really appreciate the folks who read the report to like really help dig in and lead the conversation with witnesses as we're looking at the report, and send them out like maybe very close to the time that we take the testimony, so they're fresh in people's minds, your notes. If it's something that we don't have testimony scheduled on, let's figure out a plan for how we can talk about that report in committee.
Madam Chair, we did get a request from Government Operations Committee, I believe, on reports that are supposed to be sent to us, and as to whether or not we should be discontinuing them.
You know, it's so funny. I just finally this morning was like, I'm gonna open up that email and really dig in on it. So well timed. Thank you.
And they are old,
Yes.
in statute dating back to 2009, saying this report should be
Yes.
sent to the Committee on Ways and Means, and some of them, I don't think we've seen this year or last year. So I don't know if they're being sent to us, or maybe they are, and
Yeah.
we're just,
Sorsha, do you want to share your screen so we can look at that list?
I will have to find it.
It's from Tucker. Yeah, I can set a spreadsheet, which makes it harder to
yeah,
manage.
sort.
Oh, all the pension people are here. Hi, thanks for being a little bit early because we're running ahead.
A couple of the reports that were listed there actually seemed interesting.
They do.
We
Okay.
can only hope since we asked. That's a low bar.
The Private Bond Advisory Committee Annual Report. I know I have seen that before. That does come out annually. And I think we still want that.
Private
I
activity
haven't
bond.
posted that. I don't get that.
You don't get that?
I mean, I haven't.
Oh, can you,
I haven't
okay.
noticed that.
Can you note that we need to find it, but we
Yeah.
want it?
Yeah.
And then,
You also make that bigger. Sorry.
Thank you. I was literally having the thought in my head.
Yeah.
Can you see Guy Doctor again? I'm really struggling. There we go.
similarly, I think a special funds report is really useful, but I don't remember seeing that one.
Oh. That's it. Yeah, that where it is.
Was that the year that there was a all-out war on eliminating special funds?
I don't know if that happened.
I think it was, yeah.
Kenny, do you remember in 2014 when there was a war on special funds? You're nodding.
No, I just.
It was.
I just don't like special funds.
No, okay.
I'm interested in revisiting the
I
war.
would be happy to revisit and wage a war against special funds again, so maybe we could find that report.
Appropriations would support you on that.
I think so,
Based on
too.
their previous conversation.
I think the staff would have a little party. Okay.
Agenda item.
I would be curious what this authorizes submission of plan for electronic filing fees thing is, but I can't imagine we still need it. That seems like a one-time report,
Yeah,
not an ongoing report.
About resources made available from the Vermont Enterprise Funds.
That doesn't sound like something that we need, but it might be something other committees need.
two different acts.
I
Nope,
know it's
same
the same
act.
act, it's just listed twice. There's the annual and the one time. Can we scroll down, Sarsha?
Okay, I'll play down, asking for somebody else. What is the Vermont Enterprise Fund?
Be good reasoning.
Um,
Read it.
Okay.
Lottery,
Liquor lottery.
liquor lottery, cannabis.
I don't think cannabis is there.
But there was something new added in the last few years to the enterprise.
Well, yeah, interesting. Secretary of State of an Enterprise Fund. Anyway, yeah.
Um. This for care is not really our thing. The Medicaid report we do still get. And is useful, and it's also part of the e-board meeting.
Have we seen that recently?
It's part of the e-board meeting.
Okay, Yeah.
Nolan, it's when Nolan sits there at the
yeah.
e-board.
Well, you just
I think that's on our,
provided that last week.
What?
I think that's on our.
Yeah. Um.
Incentives. What is?
Saoirse, do you know what this one is? Incentives authorized in 32.
Advisory committee?
No, the incentives authorized in 32 VSA.
What about the treasurers?
I think we should do this activity again with more staff.
Okay,
Okay,
all right.
great.
If it is helpful, I can, we can provide that report to you. That's filed on it's posted on the treasurer's office website and
Oh, but you're not submitting it.
that.
But you're not submitting
I
it.
do believe we also submit it,
I
but
thought so too.
yes,
I feel like I've seen it.
yeah, it's definitely, it's out there. If it's helpful, I can send it.
No, that's okay.
I can find it.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna end this activity and do it again with staff. And move to the Budget Adjustment Act. Is everyone ready? It's gonna be such a fun day. Okay, Tim and Jeremiah, would you like to join us? Or just one of you, whatever works. Great.
Yeah, I'll be in the back.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Hold on, friend.
Hello and welcome to Ways and Means.
Very much for having me today. My name is Tim Duggan. I'm the Director of the Vermont Retirement Systems and Office of the State Treasurer. With me today is Jeremiah Greer, our Chief Financial Officer. Today, we are here to talk about a request we have for the Budget Adjustment Act. It's a $3 million request to make up for some federal grants that are not coming in to help pay the teachers' pension costs. So if it's okay, I will share my screen and walk through the issue. One thing I'm proud to say is that we are not asking it to be in a special fund.
Well played.
All right.
Yeah, I remember seeing it.
So I will start with what is the federal grants assessment? So the teachers' pension costs, the employer part of those costs are paid by the state. Beginning in 2016, the legislature established a federal grants assessment to basically charge any federal grants that fund a teacher position, charge the pension component to that grant as well. So just for example, if there's $100,000 salary being paid out of a federal grant, then there's this additional amount of, in this year, it's 25.47% that covers the pension costs. And that comes directly from the schools. And it's an offset to what the state has to pay for the pension costs. That's basically how it works. I put the statutory reference in there. And as a practical matter, what we do is the Treasurer's Office, Jeremiah's team, they calculate that percentage every year. It's informed by what the actuaries determine is the employer portion of the cost in the annual valuation. And once we start getting data on the fiscal year salaries and information, then the first quarter will close, and then Jeremiah's team will send out bills for the federal grant piece of it to schools, and then we start getting paid by the schools. So there's a real lag here. We're estimating what the federal grants are going to be, in the fall and the winter when we're doing the budget for the upcoming fiscal year. And then we don't start seeing any receipts until really right now, where we don't even have the full first quarter in yet. So that lag is sort of what's causing the issue here, as I'll explain. And just to for the details of how it fits into the overall funding scheme for the pension systems, the state pays the Vista's employer costs. There are two components really that make up the employer cost. One we call the normal cost. That's basically the amount of this year's cost for everyone that's teaching this year. What is that one additional year of service cost? That's the smaller component. The larger component is the unfunded liability payment. And that is what the amount the state pays to close out the unfunded liability by 2038, consistent with the state's statutory funding plan. So the FGA revenues offset this amount. There's a third component that folks may remember from Act 114, the pension reform that was undertaken in 2022. It's this plus payment. That comes from the general fund, and it's not offset by the FGA. It's basically just an additional payment to pay down this unfunded liability more quickly. It's kind of like making an extra payment on your mortgage to close out that unfunded liability a little quicker. So what's that look like in 2026? The normal cost, so on the left-hand box, that's the total ADEC, the amount the actuaries say the state needs to put into the pension system this year. It's a total of $212.8 million. 41.4 of that is that normal cost, the cost of the ongoing benefits running the system. If we had no legacy unfunded liability, that's what it would cost. 171.3 million, that's the amount we need to close out the unfunded liability. So of that amount, the state, you can see in the rightmost column, the state pays by far the lion's share of that. And the school districts, through this federal grants assessment, pay. The estimate at when we were developing this last year was $13.3 million. That estimate is what's changing, and it's why we're here today. And I put the references from the big bill in there just so you have them if you want them. So this really is the chart that I wanted to share with you today. When you look at how we projected revenues, you can see that over the years it's been conservative, and we would always have, I think that was somewhat intentional, be a little conservative because you can't miss the ADEC. We have to pay that amount. It's very important for our credit rating to make sure that we stay on our statutory funding path. So we would be a little conservative in the budgeted amount, and then actuals would come in. And as you see in, really kind of starting in 21, but then 22, 23, 24, I mean, remember ESSER funds, you remember all the federal money coming in. The actual receipts really kind of skyrocketed there. And then last year, around the budget time, was when we first saw evidence that, whoa, that's ending. The federal grants are coming down substantially. So that's why 2025 is so close. And we came in and talked to the legislature, and fortunately, you put a provision in place to help with that in the budget. But we had already projected FY26, the FY26 FGA. So that offset, you see, it's finally catching up with those higher receipts, just as federal grants are falling off. And of course, all the uncertainty, not just in ESSER, but in, Title 1, 2, IDEA, all. So when we realized that, we came in, that was sort of, we were just getting the second quarter of receipts, realized that there was a problem potentially for 25 and likely for 26. So as part of the budget, the legislature appropriated a $3.8 million reserve to backfill FGA revenue in 25 and 26. So we didn't need it in 25, just barely. But in 2026, we'll need that whole amount. And as we're projecting now, then some. So that $13.375 million projection that we did last year, we've now revised down to $6.5 million approximately. And so the request that we have is another $3 million to be appropriated in the same manner that you appropriated that $3.8 million. We don't need it this year, we just carry forward into the following. And a note about the following year. Our projection for next year is $8 million. We need to watch it. There's a lot of uncertainty right now. We're projecting a very moving target. We have to do it way in advance. And so our goal is just to be transparent. As soon as we know things, let you know. But what we think makes sense is an additional $3 million in the BAA. Worked with folks in JFO, and they helped come up with some language that we think would effectuate that appropriation. Makes sense to us. And so that is what we are asking for here today, and happy to answer any questions you may have. Oh, I would be remiss as I'm seeing Chris in the room, that he's done a wonderful issue brief on how we pay for school pension retirement costs for teachers. And it talks all about the FGA, gives great detail and explanation. So there's a link to it in our deck. Happy to answer. It's on this last page right here. This.
Yeah, oh, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah. I appreciate that you mentioned the volatility around federal funds. We also know that districts are cutting K-12 teachers right now. There's been a decline of about 2% total. Policy decisions we make this year may actually change the distribution. We know that they increased pre-K teachers, for example, in the last couple of years, and that somewhat offset the decline, which was down about 8%. But what happens when we reduce the number of active teachers through policy, and whether at the federal level or at the state level, and what is the impact, and how are you working to anticipate that?
For this purpose, it really depends on, we don't know how those are cut, right? So if they're cuts that are coming from federal grants drying up, it's actually not very simple, because a lot of, I think what's been happening after the ESSER influx of money is that positions that were funded out of ESSER funds have moved into local budgets. And so that, when that happens, that position is no longer federal grant funded, and we're no longer receiving this federal grant assessment. So we kind of have to wait and see how it plays out. We are engaged, like last year we did, so this is just with the federal grants assessment. If your question is more broadly.
I'm just saying objectively, we lost about 7% of our students. We lost about 8% of our K-12 classroom teachers.
Mhm.
So there is some transition happening in the field, and that is going to have an impact on the pension. I'm just curious how you're anticipating that.
So one thing we did last year was we performed risk assessments for all of our funds, and in the teacher system, we asked our actuaries to tell us, well, what happens if we have like substantial reduction in members? Again, we're still trying to dial that in, because if we just say what happens if you lose members, they'll say, well, not much. Because a lot of times they're assuming that those members will be evenly distributed among the population. So one of the things that we think about in the retirement system is monitoring what kind of policy choices might be made if there is a decrease in teachers. For example, is it a retirement incentive being put in, because that will affect the pensions, or would it be more of like
There's
a RIF?
lot of that going on today.
Yes.
It's
Oh,
retirement
yes.
sense. Yeah.
Yes, and that affects the pensions. And we see it in our valuation. Our valuation results this year, it tells us, we have our assumptions that we go in with. And then in a lot of different areas, the purpose of evaluation is to true up our actual experience with our assumptions. And over the past couple of years, retirements is an area of loss, meaning that people are retiring earlier than our assumptions predict they will retire. And that's financial pressure on the system.
And you're
To refresh folks' memory, Chris came in and did some testimony on answering this exact question last year when we were diving into this. I don't think we had you in, Tim, but I think Chris talked to you extensively about it in order to testify. And we can have Sorcha send around that testimony as well, if folks want to sort of.
Right, I guess what I'm saying, I'm hearing from multiple districts that it is cheaper for them locally to offer a teacher a buyout.
Of course.
And they save hundreds of millions, and I'm just wondering how we're tracking whether or not that's materialized, because that's future data.
Yeah, and
I
I,
haven't got yet. Yeah.
and that's just so that we're like all having the same conversation. We did dive into that last year and we can spend more time on it this year, but I just want to make sure that we're not repeating.
Well, to circle back to this specific point, Rebecca, Representative Holcomb, sorry, Representative.
Hey, you
I
works too.
I apologize. One thing we are seeing we're hearing anecdotally is that, school districts are sort of understanding how to get the best value out of federal grants for their district by, if you have a choice on a grant to put someone who's not in the teacher system, an aide, or a teacher in, what would the rational business officer do? They put the aide in because you don't have an additional 25% that you have to add to it, and you fund the teacher in a local budget if you have that choice. There may be some of that going on. It's sort of a rational reaction to an economic signal, but it is also causing us to see a shortfall in the FGA, and that's what brings me here today.
Your question's great, and I'm happy to have folks back to dive into that as we're making policy decisions. I just want to make sure that we're closing the loop on the budget adjustment.
Yeah, I just have a very simple question, just understanding the math. So, and using round numbers, not reflective of anything, but say it's $100,000 position that is federally funded. So are you saying that the FGA is an additional 25.7% that is being sent by the federal governments?
It's going from the federal government to AOE to the district to us.
Great. But it is an addition, it's not coming out of that $100,000 appropriation.
Yep. And the point is it was a way to sort of have the school districts kind of share some of the burden of the pension costs, where that's been a longstanding, it's been the state's responsibility. I think the purpose there was to, realizing that where there were federal funds that were funding a position, it makes sense to, it's typical. It's what happens in the state side. A lot of positions are funded out of like transportation fund or what have you. And you would fund the pension piece of that out of there too.
Just think about 26%. It's huge.
It's a lot.
Or other benefits.
Correct.
I thought I understood before Charlie asked that question. I thought I understood what was happening.
But can we just wait 1 second? Does anyone have anything else about budget adjustment? Okay, I'm closing that door. Bridget, sorry, Representative Burkhart, please ask your question about.
There's a
broader
follow-up
about
question,
teacher
Charlie.
retirement. Great.
So
Yes.
I'm just not. So the school district gets a specific size grant, and the school district makes that choice about who to put in there, and then out of that grant, it hasn't gotten bigger, the grant. The grant is what it is. It's a block, that 25%. So they have to factor that in when they decide who they're funding out of that grant. It's not that there's additional grant money coming from any place. Because I got confused by that answer a little bit. So it is just, the grant is what it is, and the district has to decide how to use it.
You're absolutely right. I'm sorry if I was
Okay,
unclear on
okay.
that.
And, and that's being done for all, that calculus is being done for all positions, not just federally funded positions. And this was a big push by Treasurer Pierce, because for years, those federal positions had been underfunding the pension fund.
Anything else you want to share with us about teacher pensions more broadly as we're making policy decisions going forward?
I could talk for hours. I don't think there's any.
Would you rather we schedule time specifically to talk about it?
You have specific questions. I mean, I'm always happy to come into this committee and talk more broadly. I put together a 101 just on pensions generally. If that's of interest, we could drill down on teachers' side. Happy to be available to this committee as you'd like.
Specifically, when we talk about pre-K, could we have the treasurer's office come in and talk about that? Because we did increase pre-K teachers in that 5-year window by about 22%. So there's any policy work we do around early childhood is going to have an impact on the pension fund as well.
Yeah, thank you. 101 on pensions generally. Have we seen that before? I mean,
We have,
the short version is, I may be able to find it, but I, for one, would like to see it again and maybe other members of the committee would too. If it's something that's already prepared.
we have seen it before. I think we even saw it last year and we spent some time on pensions last year. I want everyone to know everything and we only have so many hours before crossover. So we're gonna find it and send it around to people rather than, yeah, since we don't have, well, pensions, there's a pension impact to some of our decisions. We're not making sort of.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Specific.
Something the extra review, just want to see it. Thank you.
Thank you. So many things and now we're ahead and behind and everything. Okay. Okay. I wonder if the whole day will be like this.
Kate's not available.
Kate's not available?
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna take a break until 10:15. We're catching up with that report on reports.
Very good. Things I need to find?